There's definitely more going on than meets the eye. We just had IPO of one of the largest crypto-related companies in the world. Circle, the issuer of USDC stablecoin, had a very, very successful IPO. A lot of people knew it was going to be successful, hence the real massive demand. In fact, apparently it was 25% oversubscribed, according to reports. And yeah, it opened at $60 something, closed at, I think, $80 something. Absolutely runaway success. Now, the slightly surprising part is that SBI Holdings, was it SBI Bank and SBI VC? There's a lot of SBI companies all under, I think, SBI Holdings, went in and bought quite a few of the shares of the, invested in the IPO. Invested apparently about $50 million, which is significant in what many are seeing as a strategic investment. Obviously, SBI Holdings is known to be a big backer of Ripple the company. And there is an SBI CEO on the board of Ripple, and SBI has been pushing XRP and Ripple technologies in Japan for quite a while, try to proliferate the use of XRP across banks in Japan. But I also I had a look around and I found that actually SBI, or at least a subsidiary of SBI, signed an agreement with Circle sometime in November 2023 and have been working with Circle to encourage the use of USDC in Japan. In fact, there's an SBI affiliated company that did the first USDC transaction in Japan. Okay, so SBI is not only working with Ripple, they're also working with Circle. Now, of course, there was some kind of rumor going around, which was then apparently debunked by Brad Garlinghouse himself, that Ripple was looking to acquire Circle, the company, eliminating the competition in a way for RLUSD, or at least combining that the resources into one, something to the tune of $5 billion or so. And having received a valuation, a more up-to-date valuation of the company, that offer was rejected. Now, whether or not that is true, I don't know. I'm more inclined to believe that it wasn't true, that it was just rumor, especially when Brad Garlinghouse himself came out and said this is not true. But then I know that sometimes some of these guys aren't obliged to tell us the truth. Brad Garlinghouse isn't obliged to tell us the truth. So just because he came out and said no and debunked it doesn't mean that there wasn't at least an attempt or a thought process into it. Now, in my speculative thought process, might this be a round-back strategic method of making sure that a Ripple affiliated company has sort of clause in the IPO or the ownership of Circle? Having such a large share of the IPO means that, I don't know what that means. Does that mean that they get a good say in company decisions? Does that mean that there's now a conflict of interest or some kind of advantage that they have, in negotiation rooms, on the company board of directors, etc. Another thing that I find quite interesting is how interested investors were in the IPO of a crypto-based company. What this means is that there is a lot of pent-up demand in traditional finance in the investment arena into companies like Circle. And we know that the Ripple IPO is coming up soon. There must be a massive interest in that. And we know that Ripple is valued at a much higher valuation, especially now with the amount of XRP that they're holding in escrow. And you think about, that is now in the 100 billion or something like that for the price of XRP. And if the price of XRP were to go up even further before the IPO kicks off, we are looking at some monumental amount of money. So companies like, obviously, BlackRock will be looking at that. Fidelity will be looking at that. JP Morgan will be looking at that. And a lot of billionaire investors and VCs will be looking at acquiring themselves some shares in Ripple. So this Circle IPO has been the most successful IPO across the board, crypto or no crypto, since the IPO of Coinbase, apparently in 2021. And we know that Coinbase and Circle are actually affiliated with each other. So again, it goes to show you how interested people are in crypto IPOs. Now, there's a fear in the ecosystem that the IPO of Ripple is going to eat into the interest of XRP and is going to divert Ripple's business and their attention away from the XRP projects that they have. But if you think about it, their entire valuation is based on the fact that XRP is worth a high price. So the higher the price of XRP, the higher the valuation of Ripple as a company, because a lot of it actually depends on how much XRP they're holding in escrow. So you can rest assured that nobody wants a high price of XRP more than Ripple themselves, because a high price of XRP literally means that they have a high value company, which then goes to make sure that their IPO is more successful. Man, there's a lot happening this week. I'm trying my best to keep up. I'm so excited. I'm still doing my dollar cost average, but I think that we're about to see some interesting fireworks on the charts. So stay tuned for that. Not financial advice, do your own research. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.